ways that you can use Tinder, some healthier than others. I'm Dr. Trish Leigh. Let's go through those 4 ways together. And I encourage you in this video to try to figure out which type of user you are, because the different ways that people use Tinder can show up in their lives differently and have different impacts in terms of anxiety, depression, actually finding people on Tinder that will want to talk with you and be with you, outcomes that can be very, very important for you. And some of those outcomes are literally mind-blowing. So stay with me because we're going to go through a bunch of those findings. Then at the end of this video, I'm going to give you a brain tip that you can use so you can start using dating apps or Tinder in a healthy way. And as you leave your porn habit behind, your brain's going to get healthier and you're going to want to engage in a different way. That is the goal, so that your outcomes improve. So stay with me and we're going to go through that. Okay, so there's 4 different ways that a person can engage on Tinder, and they are of varying levels of healthiness. So first, let me tell you the parameters behind them, and then we'll go through the 4 types pretty quickly. I want you to stay on the ball and try to determine which type is yours, also recognizing that self-awareness might be low if you are still sucked into a pornography habit. Then you can figure out what might need to be tweaked in your usage so that you can engage in a healthier way. Okay, so first we're going to talk about the 5 parameters that this study, called the Psychology of Swiping, found to be important in the way that people engage. Number 1 is general motive to use Tinder, whether that be low or high. Number 2 is secure or insecure attachment, and if it's insecure, how. So secure attachment means that you feel whole and comfortable in the world. You feel whole and loved and cared for with the people who are important in your life. So that allows you to be able to go out in the world and engage confidently. So attachment means I can go out and do things and not feel socially anxious. I can feel okay, but then I also feel okay coming back. I'm not worried about getting back to my people or my home base. That's secure attachment. Insecure attachment means there's a breakdown, either in your ability to go in the world and feel confident, or your ability to feel okay and relaxed and whole with the people in your world. And we'll get there in a few minutes when we talk about the other types. Okay, parameter number 3 is level of sexual desire, whether that be solitary, so you're on Tinder for your own sexual gratification and edification. That, unfortunately, is many people who are using Tinder in an unhealthy way, and we are going to talk about that. Then there's also dyadic, which means you're on Tinder because you are looking for sexual experience with another person. So again, there's healthy and unhealthy ways to do that, and we'll get there. Parameter number 4 is the level of urgency, how urgently you want to use Tinder in the first place and on a daily basis. And that can break down to impulsivity, how impulsive you are. And then what's also included is conscientiousness. So is there a lack of conscientiousness or thoughtfulness in the way that you interact on Tinder as well? We're going to look at that. Last, parameter number 5 is the level of sensation seeking, and that includes self-esteem. So when we talk about sensation seeking, we've talked about this before. If your brain is using too much fast brain energy and too much slow brain energy, it's going to seek out sensory calming experiences and nervous system stimulating experiences. That's what we're talking about here, sensation seeking, whether those are low or high levels. Okay, hopefully you're still with me. So think about these categories and where you might fit in. Number 1, they call them clusters. I'm going to call them user types. User type number 1 is regulated with low desire. So what regulated means is there's a low level of general motivation to use Tinder. You can kind of take it or leave it. There's a secure attachment. So you feel whole, you feel good with your people, and you feel confident going into the world and embarking on different activities in the world. There is a medium level of sexual desire, whether that be for solitary reasons or for meeting another person to have a sexual experience with. There's a low level of urgency, so you're not dying to get back to it. And there's a general low levels of lack of conscientiousness, which means you're pretty conscientious in the way that you interact with people. Also, there's medium levels of sensation seeking. Most people are there in the first place for some level of getting their sensory needs met, whether it be calming or stimulating. So in regulated, there's medium levels of that. Then there is high levels of self-esteem. You're feeling pretty confident in and of yourself. Okay, so number 2 is regulated with low desire. So you're still pretty regulated. You have low level of general motivation to use. There's medium insecure attachment. So your attachment isn't as secure as in regulated, and you're feeling a little insecure in the way you embark into the world and the way that you fit into the group in the people who are important in your world. It could be one or the other. There's very low levels of sexual desire. So it's regulated with low desire, which means this person's on basically, for sensory seeking and for something to do, but trying to get their kicks in terms of sex for themselves or trying to find a partner is pretty low. Then there's medium levels of urgency and medium levels of lack of conscientiousness. There's pretty low sensation seeking, lower than in the first because, again, desire is pretty low, but there's low self-esteem now instead of high. The regulated user's there to, kind of stimulate and calm their brain, but they're feeling pretty good about themselves. This user isn't totally in it for the sex piece, but they are in it for sensation seeking a little bit, but their self-esteem is low, and that's usually why they're there. That's cluster number 2. Cluster number 3, or type of user number 3, is unregulated and highly motivated. And this is the category that most people are going to fall into. So perk your ears up and listen to this. High level of general motives to use Tinder. So you're motivated, you want to use it, and it's because there's high level of dyadic and solitary sexual desire. So we've got high motivation and high levels of sexual desire, and even higher levels of solitary sexual desire. So you are there for high levels of sensation seeking. You're trying to get your sensory needs met in a sexual way, more so for yourself than to find a partner, but you're willing to find a partner for sexual gratification. Nothing about connection. Just so you know, we haven't talked about connection at all. This user, number 3, unregulated, highly motivated, has high levels of anxious attachment and medium levels of avoidant attachment. So anxious and avoidant attachment are the 2 main types of insecure attachment. So what it means is you might feel anxious when you go away from that root partner or your parents, the most important person in your world. When you go away from them, you have levels of anxiety. So you might feel anxiety going into the world, but it's because you need to get back to that person so you can feel whole inside. It's not a healthy way to be. That's high levels of anxious attachment. This type of highly motivated user also has medium levels of avoidant attachment, which means they like to keep people at arm's length. So they don't feel secure with the people in their world. So they're seeking out other people to sensation seeking and to fill the need for gratification, but not necessarily connection because it feels risky to them. So they still keep people at arm's length. That's anxious and avoidant attachment in a nutshell. There's a lot more than that. So you can read up on that. And if it's not a perfect description, I'm sorry about that, but it's pretty good. Okay, so that's user number 3. So user number 3 is really interested in being on there. They want to get their sensory needs met. They're really looking for some sexual gratification by themselves. They're not feeling good about themselves. They're feeling anxious and overwhelmed all at the same time. And self-esteem's in the medium levels. It's not real low, but it could use some work. Okay, type number 4 is unregulated, avoidant. So there's medium levels of motives, not high like in unregulated, highly motivated, but now both of these users are unregulated. To me, what that means is there's dysregulation in the nervous system. The brain's operating more out here in the extremes of too fast and too slow than it is in the middle of perfect processing speed. That in and of itself is a problem that creates these usage problems, or misuse as the article calls it. So there's medium levels of motives, medium levels of anxious attachment, that anxiety piece, but high levels of avoidant attachment. So this might be people who have what's called intimacy anorexia. So they want sexual gratification to be met, but they actually prefer that it be met in a way that doesn't involve connection because they're trying to avoid connection with other human beings. So if that's you, that's not a healthy way to be. You should be able to feel whole and want to connect with other people if you're securely attached in the world. There's low levels of dyadic sexual desire. So there's not any real desire to be with another person for the sake of being with another person, but there's very high levels of solitary sexual desire, and that's the avoidant piece. They want to have their needs met, but not necessarily in a connected way. There's medium levels of urgency and high levels of lack of conscientiousness. So their thoughtfulness in the way that they interact with other people is really, really low. And on the extreme of this would be people who have narcissistic tendencies, if you know anything about that, or narcissism, where they're just in it to get their needs met and they don't really care what happens to the other person. It's not even that they want the other person's needs to be met. They just simply don't care at all what happens to the other person. That's in the extreme. And there's a low level of sensation seeking and low self-esteem. So it's just unregulated avoidant is just high levels of getting their sexual desire met, and that is about it. Okay, so those are our 4 users. Regulated, pretty good shape. Regulated with low desire, so they're there really to kind of entertain themselves because they have low self-esteem in a nutshell. Unregulated, highly motivated, again, energy being used out here in the extremes, mostly to help them feel better about their, medium, lower levels of self-esteem and attachment issues. And yes, they're there for the sexual desire, but both types. And then when it comes to unregulated avoidant, that's a person who's just there to get their sexual desire met. Okay, so those are the 4 types. Now let me tell you, and I'm going to read the chart or some parts of the chart that I'm going to put on Instagram because it's so interesting, I think, but then I'm going to tell you how it shows up in your actual world and what you can do about it. So what is found is that in terms of problematic Tinder usage, and this is all statistically analyzed and proven, unregulated and motivated is the most misused way to use Tinder because you're highly motivated and you're there to kind of get your own needs met and sensation seeking. But a close second is unregulated avoidant. So this unregulated usage is a problem. What shows up is depression. So depression shows up for the unregulated avoidant, then for the regulated low desire, but those people are approaching from a more depressed mode, and an unregulated motivated. So the unregulated user ends up with more depression. And we know from the other study that I shared with you that using Tinder, and especially not using it well, results in more rejection, which results in lower self-esteem in the end. So it is associated with unregulated use, lack of conscientiousness, just trying to get your own needs met, mainly for your own sexual gratification, possibly to be with another person, but in an objectified way. Hopefully you're with me. So long story short, it increases anxiety, it increases depression. It also is shown that people who are using Tinder that are analyzed in this study, many of them are in relationships, and many of them, even more, the most category are people who are married. So if that is you, I want you to think about these words for a minute. And again, this isn't a moral discussion. Just to reframe it, this is a neuroscientific discussion. The reason you are there is because if you watch a lot of pornography, intensity, consistency, frequency will lead you to the screen, and people who are just acting will no longer be enough for the stimulation in your brain. So what will happen is you will want to start seeking out some of the activities, or all of them, that you have been watching on the screen. Now you want to play them out with another person. And Tinder tends to be the first place that people go to do that. So if you're a married person, or if you're in a relationship and you're on Tinder and you've convinced yourself you're just there for fun, I want you to know that especially these categories show you are there to get your sexual desires met. your solitary ones in most cases when it's unregulated. And it's because your brain's needs have ramped up because they've gotten this dopamine flood from pornography use for a long time. And now it needs a continuation of the deluge. It needs even more of a flood. And the only way to get that is with another human being. And science proves my words that people who have a more involved pornography habit, or we'll call it an addiction, even though I don't totally love that word, but I know it resonates with some people. You have a need to have that dopamine flood in your brain. And when you can't get it anymore from just actors or, perceived actors on a screen, the next way is to seek out with either webcam sex or on dating sites first, then maybe webcam. Then people are led to prostitution, using prostitutes to act out the fantasies that they've seen in the scenes that they've been watching. So if that's you in a relationship and you're doing this and you're on Tinder, this should be a red flag to you that you are moving in the wrong direction, my friend, and you need to start using some of the strategies that I tell you to get you moving in the right direction. Okay, so you can see those images on Instagram. I could go on, but I won't for the sake of time. What I will do is transition to your brain tip. So if you are in a relationship, delete Tinder. You don't need to be there. You're in a relationship. So if you want to be on Tinder, you need to go back, get the strength to look at your relationship, find the holes in your relationship, and start plugging those holes within your relationship. As you leave your pornography habit behind, your sexual desire will come back into a regulated and healthy optimal mode that you should be able to engage with your partner to be able to have those needs met, because you already know your needs are ramped up because you're going back to the screen. So get off the apps, get back to your relationship, sit with it, feel it. What's missing? What do you need? What does your partner need? Start fixing some of that. And if you can't fix your relationship, time to take a good hard look at it and possibly find a relationship that meets your needs. And I would encourage you not to do it on Tinder because likely you won't be finding it there anyways. Okay, so then how do you engage on Tinder in a healthy way if you are the smaller percentage that isn't in a relationship? When you get on any dating app, you want to be there for human connection, not just your sexual needs. So I want you to think about it like you've gone out to a restaurant or to a bar and you're hanging out with your friends and you see someone across the room who you glance at them and you see him or her laughing, and just their laugh is intoxicating to you. And you want to get to know that person more. Something about them. It's their energy and your energy are connecting. So then you walk over and you meet them and you're like, hey, my name is, how you doing? You want to come over here and have a drink with me and chat? Then you're like, do you want to go get a cup of coffee? Then, a week later, you're like, you want to meet again? We'll have dinner. At dinner, you touch their hand. You see where I'm going with this, right? Then after dinner, you ask them if you can, right? If you've ever seen Hitch, if you haven't seen Hitch, go watch it right now. Is that you can only come 90% of the way so that there's consent in a light, lovely kiss. Then, I know this is a dream world, but you know what I'm saying. You're building intimacy in a healthy, natural way. That's how brains were designed to be used in an evolutionary stance. So then, eventually, when you are have gone down a little bit of a road, then you're both ready to engage in a sexual relationship in a healthy way. So when you're on Tinder, you are trying to find that person that you want to spend more time with, build more intimacy in multiple areas, the 5 main areas that I'm always talking about, that will eventually lead to physical intimacy, which hopefully should end up in an awesome and gratifying, pleasurable, happiness generating sexual relationship too. That's how you use it in a healthy way. Get back to the more regulated use where you feel whole on the inside, you feel secure in the world. You are glad to be there, but you don't need to be there. You're not getting all your sensory needs met from this app. You can do it. Now, I'm going to take it one step further, and I would encourage you to join groups on Zoom. So make a list of the 5 things that you care about the most and you think about the most. If you like to work out, join some workout group. If you like to play chess, join a chess group. If you like to play darts, find some dart group. Start making connections with people in the world that have a lifestyle and values that are like yours so you can build a genuine connection. Okay, I hope this helps you out and how you're going to engage on Tinder. And remember, if you want help in this journey, leaving a pornography habit behind, trying to find real connection in the world, and helping you find your purpose so you can reach your full potential, become a whole healthy person. Because when it comes to relationships, to have a really good relationship, you need to be whole and healthy before you find that person. You want to find a person who's whole and healthy or as close as possible, and then the two of you can be together and ride off into the sunset. And I'm here to help you if you're looking for some support in that journey. So jump on over to drtrishleigh.com. You can see the programs that I offer if you're looking for help. And remember, control your brain or it'll control you.